Our next speaker is Sharifeh Jafari. As I explained in introducing her, she is a literary activist and a social activist. She used to own a publication house in Azerbaijan. The central government annulled the permit for this. She will speak about the problems of publication in Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, hello, and thank you very much for letting me speak here. I want to thank the Südwind authorities as well. As we know, in all countries, there are always unions that let publications publish their books, and it is usually a publisher that is responsible for the books published. If there is a protest from a reader or from an author, then the government comes in and takes care of the book. Now, in Iran, the law about the publishers is different. These regulations lead to stress, lead to problems. Now, when someone wants to get a permit to publish, first they have to work on the security issues. Now, from every 100 person, I can really say that maybe only 3 out of every 100 person can actually get a permit for publication. After that, if they pass the security checks, they have to get this and that document and everything, and then at the end they can maybe get a permit to publication. Based on the law, after 2 years, this permit has to either be given or its non-approval has to be sent. But sometimes it takes years and years, and then after years they would decide whether this or that person will get permit to opening a publication. This alone shows how Islamic Republic of Iran limits the thought and culture is monopolized by a small minority. After permit for publication is given, every book has to get a permit for publication separately. Of course, this also takes a lot of time, it creates a lot of problems. If a book, imagine if a book doesn't get amendments and if it's not declared illegal, yes, in a few weeks or few months, maybe it can get it. But this only usually happens with governmental or academic or religious books. The other books usually don't get their permits so easily. Now, when it comes to literary, historical, political books, this kind of books, because of the current conditions in Iran, the author usually does self-censorship. Without him actually wanting to, he usually just compliments Islam and the Basij and the supreme leader and says these things to just show directly or indirectly his friendship with the Islamic Republic. Then it comes to the publisher. Publisher has to censor the book. For instance, if there is something about sex, is about kissing, is about making love, the poet usually changes the words, puts similar words, ersatz words, and then it comes to the censor officials of the culture ministry that have to actually approve the book. Now, one of the problems of the Azerbaijani publishers, I can speak as Pinar publishing house. I owned one and I was published. I can talk about my vanished dreams and the conditions that I had to go. Now, after all the problems, I got a permit to publications. My clients were all sorts of poets, Turk, Lor, Persian. We were a beacon of hope in the Zanjan, Turkish-speaking Zanjan province. We prepared books. Day and night we worked. We published some poems in Turkish. It was Iran newspaper. When they insulted the Turks, the protests started by the Turkish-speaking people, and Zanjan province also saw some protests, and it was immediately after that we faced very difficult conditions, as did generally the world of Turkish house. Our offices were raided every day. They were raided, even though we didn't do anything. We were working on the culture ministry regulations, only publishing books. No, the problem was that we had published some books in Turkish. Immediately after, they made our business hell, and now I had to leave. I left to Karaj, which was a Persian-speaking place. It was a Persian-speaking place, and first we didn't have many problems. But after a while, after many book exhibitions that we had, so we were doing much better. But as soon as we get some clients, especially when we had Turkish-speaking clients, now the intelligence ministry and the culture ministry started bothering us. They didn't let us go to the book exhibitions, even though we had got permits from the municipalities, from the municipal authorities, from the culture ministry. We had permits. Now, in the Nasirabad township in Shahryar, we were raided, and all our Turkish poems, including those of myself, were raided. These were not political books. These were solely poems, literary poems, and they had permits already. Not only they had permits, but before the publication, before being to the book exhibition, they had to be approved one by one. But because they were Turkish-speaking clients, this was used then as excuse to give you all sorts of different crimes on you. They didn't let us go to the provincial book exhibitions, and this was a lot of problems for us. Now, I did a lot. I went to Tehran. I spoke to the book authorities. I used a lot of young people, and we started publishing some books again. Our books became famous. I started employing some people. We had people from all over Iran bought our books. In Azerbaijan, they knew us. The culture ministry actually knew us as an active publication. But when I was resisting against indescribable crisis, I had started anew from the point zero, from a few times. But the intelligence ministry was planning to stop me from doing any work. Now, every publication house, of course, tries to spread its name. They destroyed me at the height of my success. In 2002, they stopped me. 2012, they stopped me from going to Tehran exhibition house. But especially after that, they didn't let me go to exhibitions in the Turkish-speaking regions. They said, now for 6 months, your permit is going to be suspended for 6 months, and this is only being said orally. I asked who said it. Please give me this in writing. Will you give me this writing? I tried very hard not to give any excuses to anybody. I tried not to publish many Turkish-speaking books. This is why hundreds of Turkish writers and poets used to come to me. Dozens of books I had dozens of books waiting to get their permit. Hundreds of books from writers all over the country, especially Azerbaijan. They had national permits. I had signed contracts with a lot of people. I said, all right, you're suspending me. Please give me this in writing. Give me this in writing. I want to know who is it that has suspended my publication. They said, oh no, we cannot give it to you in writing. I said, well, then I'm going to continue registering my books. They said, well, try to do whatever you want. We're not going to accept your books. How can I tell you? How can I tell you how difficult it is? How hard it is on me? I tried. I talked to any officials I can, to any authorities. I begged them. Sometimes they told me, okay, go to the culture ministry offices in Tabriz. I would go there. I go to Tabriz. I try to talk to anybody, and I was insulted, especially because I was a woman. I received. They told me, why were you doing this as a woman? You should go save your husband at home. Why are you trying to be a publishing house? And they wanted to break me. They wanted to make me so exhausted. Now, after 8 years of resistance, of my life was being destroyed. They told me they're going to have an appeals session so they can decide whether they'll give me a permit or not. At the end, they said, because of a book called The Brief History of the Turks, I'm being suspended. But this book, I had received a permit for it. They said, oh, it's been a mistake. I showed, look at this. You gave the you gave this book to publish. They said, no, this is a pan-Turkist book, this is a seditionist book, this is a sectarian book. But the book had already received the publication after some amendments. Now they said, okay, come and say that you published the book illegally and then you promise not to do this again. I said, well, this is not true. They said, no, listen, it's fine. You can make a mistake. Just come and say I did a mistake and then I'm not gonna do it again. There are people who've done this 6 times and they'll be okay. I had nothing to do, so I went and said, okay, I made a mistake. As soon as I said this, the person in charge of security said, this is what I wanted. I didn't know what she meant, but after 2 days they charged me. They asked me to go to the court. I got lawyers. Now the interesting thing is my lawyer looked at the case and saw that it was actually 8 months since the permit had been annulled, not suspended but annulled, in a meeting in which I wasn't present. They were just playing with me. They creating a lot of financial and mental difficulties for me. I mean, it was not true that Tabriz had make a claim against me. I was a publishing house in Tehran. It was culture minister in Tehran that had to deal with me. Now they tried to put all this charge against me, to give me 3 years in prison. That's what they wanted. They wanted to, and then my lawyer said, okay, try to find money for bail. I was only a poet who loved his life. I was a publisher, a writer. My crime was my tongue, and that I spoke in a tongue to be understood by millions in Iran. How could I tell people in cultural poverty and the government propaganda? Now they look at a woman in prison as a low person. What could I do? Now, I brought some examples of the Turkish-speaking publishers and let me tell you some examples of Turkish-speaking publishers facing discrimination. Now, if a book is in Turkish, it will have a lot of problems in getting permits because there's an assimilationist policy of the regime. Now, there is a problem of how to write words. Now, they force you to write a word in a Persian way, even though when it has to be written in the Turkish way. You know, it's very hard to explain this. I mean, the author, the publishers are forced to change this, and then if you keep writing in this way, they keep you waiting for months until they basically drive you to letting go of publishing your book. And this is a situation faced by a lot of Turkish. No, I'm not gonna. They don't let you talk about the heroes of Azerbaijan. You can't talk about, say, Jaffer Pisheway. You can't talk about Babak. If someone does that, author or writer or poet will face problems. The government, of course. The other thing is they never buy books in Turkish. If they buy books in Turkish, it would be only books that are pro-governments. And they create political problems. They create fictitious political problems for the Azerbaijani publishers in order to exhaust them from activity, and they don't get them. They don't get permits, publication permits, to Azerbaijani publishers, even though they form basically an important part of Iranian population. Even if when they get permits, they will not be allowed to publish only in Turkish. Maybe they will be allowed to publish books in Persian, but also a few in Turkish. As a result, we don't have a market for sale. We don't have a union for Turkish-speaking publishers. A Azerbaijani publisher faces so many financial difficulties that are basically indescribable. Now, then we have intelligence ministry, municipal authorities, basically constantly bugging Azerbaijani publishers. Any Azerbaijani publisher who tries to take part in a book exhibition, without a doubt, there will be some intelligence ministry officials that will keep them under control, whether closely or from afar. They listen to what they say, they listen to who they deal with. Now, every Azerbaijani publisher has been constantly worried that they're going to raid his stall, close his stall, stop distribution of this or that book. The Azerbaijani publishers, because of having books in Turkish together with Persian, have a lot of their sale in the Turkish-speaking areas. but these publishers are always stopped because of security precautions. I'm not gonna name the Azerbaijani publishers and activists, but you can find them out. They're not that many. They're less than the fingers in both hands. In Urumia and Ardabil book exhibitions, they don't let a lot of Azerbaijani publishers to be there. Myself, I've never been allowed to go to these provincial book exhibitions in Ardabil or Urumia, even though I have years of experience. Another thing that I have seen cries of the old Turkish writers whose dream is to publish one piece before they die, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I wished I could do something for them. I can still remember the retired teacher and the heartbroken poet Ali Karimi. His wailings and tears are alive in front of my eyes. Because of his heart problems and a surgery he had, he was hoping for his book to be published, and his book three times it went back for amendments, and after 2 years the book was never published because the Pinar publication house, which was mine, was closed down, and the book was never published. It's still in the Culture Ministry. Now there is a discrimination, and racist policies have even entered our Persian speaking compatriots' souls and minds. Whether they want it or not, they continue this dirty policy. They look at the Turkish population as a joke. They make fun of them. They call them compatriots, but they really regard them as aliens. And when we try to complain, they say, "Oh, you're a seditionist. You are a independentist. You are a pan-Turkist." Why? Because the foundations have problems. Because instead of a humane policy, they have a racist policy. I brought myself as an example. After 9 months, I tried to just prove what was mine, to just ask for what was mine. At the same time, there were other publication houses that had problems. There were newspapers who wrote something about this, very briefly. VOA, BBC, they all talked about VOA and BBC all the time. Talked about Cheshme publication, which had problems. Now Cheshme publication problem and that of a lot of others was solved, but Pinar publication house, no, nothing was done. It looks as if this has never existed. But I worked with the big publication houses in Tehran. I published books together with them. It is here that you understand it is not only the government, but it is the Persian-speaking nation that regard you and your culture, our culture, as alien. Sorry, I forgot something. I'm gonna read it again. Now, I spoke about the way of writing. Some words need to be written in a Turkish manner, but they force us to write it in a Persian manner. This is very confusing. Yeah. I did talk about that, and I hope for a day when all humans in any nation, in any language, can reach their real, genuine human rights and live in security and calm together, enjoy life and enjoy their activities. I want to thank authorities. Thank you very much for your speech. Thank you, Sharifeh.